From Vermont Public, this is The Frequency. I'm Mitch Wertlieb. It's Friday, August 8th, and here are today's headlines. Participation in Vermont's medical cannabis program has declined significantly since the recreational market opened a couple of years ago. But now state officials are trying to expand access. The program allows patients with serious medical conditions to purchase higher potency cannabis products without paying the state's 20% tax. Right now, only 2 dispensaries in the state serve medical patients, in Winooski and in Montpelier. James Pepper chairs the Cannabis Control Board, and he says the state will allow other retailers to apply for licenses to sell medical products to patients if their staff undergoes additional training.
I think they will have unprecedented access for medical patients for the first time in the history of the medical program.
Pepper says he hopes to have some new locations in place by the end of October. Roughly 2,500 Vermonters are currently enrolled in the medical cannabis program. A different kind of expansion is happening at Roxbury State Forest thanks to a donation from local landowners. The Flemmer family has donated roughly 52 acres of forested land along the spine of the Northfield Range. Locals use the area now primarily for hunting and skiing, but this will secure public access and conserve the land forever. The town of Warren also pitched in funds for the acquisition. Hito Coleman chairs the Warren Conservation Commission and says the land features a critical wildlife passage.
It has a very large beaver pond in it. Its connectivity and corridor value are really significant because it's, at the lowest elevation on the ridge right there. So that's the easiest place for all animals to cross.
The property also contains headwater streams for the Dog River, and scientists with the state say conserving it as forest will help protect downstream communities from flooding. Vermont is expected to see more frequent and severe flooding in the coming decades because of human-caused climate change. Meanwhile, a high-profile lawsuit over who can maintain public trails that run through private land will move through the Vermont Supreme Court this summer. This week, the court agreed to fast-track the case at the request of Tunbridge landowners John Echeverria and Karen Pratt. The couple has been battling the town of Tunbridge for more than 5 years over a trail that runs through their land. The Orange County Superior Court ruled in July that the town can manage the trail, but the couple appealed. The legislature passed a law this year that clarifies the power towns have to maintain trails, but it doesn't take effect until next year. Lawmakers delayed the law to let the court case play out. In other legal news related to the state's High Court, Associate Justice William Cohen is retiring from the Vermont Supreme Court this December. The Vermont judiciary made the announcement yesterday. Cohen joined Vermont's High Court 6 years ago. He previously served as a Superior Court judge and was first appointed to the bench in 1999. Cohen served as a deputy state's attorney in Rutland County and worked in private practice before becoming a judge. Earlier this year, Vermont Supreme Court Justice Karen Carroll announced that she would retire this month. The Judicial Nominating Board will submit names of potential replacements to Governor Phil Scott, who will then make the final pick. Coming up, there's a growing need for day programs that serve older adults, people suffering from dementia, and those with disabilities. But paying to keep those programs open is proving to be a challenge. Vermont Public's Nina Keck has details on the gaps in care, but also where new service options are emerging. That's after this. Adult day services provide health care and social connection to older adults and people with disabilities, along with crucial respite for the growing number of family caregivers in Vermont. But the industry faces increasing challenges. 5 adult day programs have closed in the state since 2020, and policy changes at the federal level are hampering new programs that were in the works. Vermont Public's Nina Keck has been reporting on this, and she spoke with host Mary English to explain what she's discovered.
Nina, Congress just passed legislation calling for steep cuts to Medicaid. How will the remaining programs be impacted?
Well, it's unclear right now, but there's a lot of anxiety because the majority of Vermonters who use adult day services pay for it with Medicaid. Medicare doesn't cover it. Kristen Bolton was one of the program administrators I've talked to. She is the executive director of elderly services in Addison County. She says the state has raised Medicaid reimbursement levels in recent years, which has been a godsend, but She's fairly confident for this fiscal year's funding, which just started. But she says knowing the state has to fund a lot of really important services, including adult day programs, including hospitals and nursing homes, with a much smaller pot of money. She knows the axe is going to drop, and she said it's really unnerving not knowing where. She also worries about staffing. She said, she runs a nonprofit that doesn't offer health benefits. And she says many of her employees see their work as a labor of love, but considering the high cost of housing right now in Vermont and projected increases in healthcare costs, she's wondering how long people can afford to work in this field.
Yeah, wow. I understand earlier, too, that this year the state was hopeful about 3 new adult day programs that were starting, that getting into the process of becoming licensed. Can you update us on the status of those?
Yeah, sadly, it looks like none of those are going to be opening anytime soon, if at all. Vista Senior Living had hoped to open an adult day program in Mendon this year, which would have helped in Rutland County greatly. But their executive director told me that he had to put those plans on hold because of staffing shortages, which he said have been exacerbated by recent changes to immigration policy. Another nonprofit that's trying to start a combination adult day and child care center in the Barry Montpelier area, Generations Vermont is their name, they've run into problems finding the right location and federal startup funding that they hope to tap into, whether to build a new location or renovate some existing place. Now that federal funding is going to be tougher for them to get, and all of which has caused them to delay and delay. I think they're still hoping maybe to hope in 2027, but they admitted there were a lot of questions. A third applicant seeking a permit to start a program in Colchester, I understand that may be off the table, and that person is now looking for a new location, but no updates there.
Oh, wow. Please tell us there's some silver linings that you found in your reporting. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I do have a couple of silver linings. And basically, they're about nonprofits that are trying to make existing resources work for more people. One's in Chittenden County, one's in Addison County. Cathedral Square is a Chittenden County housing agency. They operate a memory care facility in Williston called Allenbrook, which has 14 full time residents. They want to start offering weekday respite services there between 10 and 2 for up to 10 people a day. Elderly Services in Addison County is now driving clients from Burlington to their adult day program in Middlebury. They plan to hopefully expand to Rutland this fall with vans, and they say they may be able to serve about 11 people in each direction, which, Mary, it's small potatoes, but either of those programs could be a useful model for other facilities going forward.
That's Vermont Public's Nina Keck, and you can read that report at vermontpublic.org. Thanks so much, Nina.
You're welcome, Mary.
And now it's time for our weekly look at news from the world of sports. Despite having their 7-game winning streak snapped against the Kansas City Royals Wednesday night, it was a pretty great week for the Boston Red Sox. A 3-game sweep of the first place in the AL West Houston Astros was followed by 2 more wins against the Royals, and Boston hurtled over the New York Yankees into second place in the AL East while taking ownership of the first available wildcard berth. And then the front office finally did something off the field to get fans excited about the future on it. Rookie phenom Roman Anthony was signed to an 8-year, $130 million extension of his current deal, ensuring he won't go the way of Mookie Betts anytime soon. The Red Sox, of course, could and should have dipped deep into the coffers to keep Betts rather than trading him to the Dodgers 5 years ago for a paltry return in a classic case of being penny wise and pound foolish. But management has this time decided wisely not to take any chances of having to make a similar calculation with the 21-year-old Anthony. And if you're skeptical that signing that young a player to a long-term deal now is jumping the gun, don't be. There's a reason Anthony was listed as the top prospect in all of baseball. Over the past month, Anthony's OPS, or on-base plus slugging percentage, is near 1,000. That's pretty good. And he's shown remarkable discipline at the plate with a walk rate close to 14%. That means he's not chasing bad pitches out of the strike zone, something a lot of rookies understandably are susceptible to in their fledgling days in the show. He's also made some sparkling defensive plays in the outfield, and he's only going to get better as he enters his prime. In fact, Anthony was nearly the difference in the Red Sox' recent loss against Kansas City. Trailing 3-2 in the middle innings, Anthony blasted a shot deep to right field that literally would have been a home run in any other ballpark in the major leagues besides Fenway, given the distance it traveled, and it would have tied the game at 3 apiece. Instead, Fenway being the beautiful and sometimes maddening oddity it is, the ball hung up just long enough for, and how fitting is this, Mike Yastrzemski, grandson of one of the greatest Red Sox players of all time, Carl Yastrzemski, to make a fine catch just at the edge of the low right field wall to end the inning. The Royals then widened their lead and went on to win 7-3. But it shows how Anthony's plate presence is already paying huge dividends by making the Boston lineup that much tougher for opposing pitchers anytime he's part of it. Unfortunately, the series finale loss came with the debut of Dustin May, one of the 2 trade deadline acquisitions the Red Sox made, and one that may have confirmed my suspicions about the value of the move. May lasted just 3 2/3 while giving up 6 hits and 3 earned runs. He also hit 2 batters, but he wasn't alone in that infraction, as Boston relievers would go on to hit 3 more in the game, and that tied a franchise record for the most hit batsman in a single game. Now, it's unfair to call the deal for May a bust after just 1 start, but it does track with the high ERA that he lugs with him from the Dodgers. And I still think a greater effort could have been made to acquire a higher caliber starting pitcher who could be a reliable third starter behind Garrett Crochet and Lucas Giolito should the Red Sox make the playoffs. Still, a nice week for the Old Town team, and they seem primed to make the last weeks of the regular season exciting to watch for the first time in recent memory. That will include another tough stretch starting tonight out west against the San Diego Padres and old friend Xander Bogaerts, part of a swinging Friars squad that is bulked up with trade deadline acquisitions, including arguably the game's best closer in Mason Miller. It'd behoove the Red Sox not to be playing from behind against the Padres in that series. Now, if the New York Yankees have broken out of their recent doldrums, they have former Cardinals slugger Paul Goldschmidt to thank for it. He blasted a tie-breaking solo home run in the 7th inning against the Texas Rangers Wednesday night to help snap New York's 5-game losing skid in a 3-2 win. It also prevented Texas from leapfrogging New York for the 3rd and final available wildcard berth in the American League. Meanwhile, the New York Mets are really having a rough go of things, now losers of 4 in a row and 8 of their last 9 after falling 4-1 to the Cleveland Guardians Wednesday and nearly getting no hit in the process. Gavin Williams came within 2 outs of throwing the first no-hitter in the majors this season before Juan Soto spoiled the bid with a solo home run in the 9th. The Mets should be thankful they're still just 2.5 games behind the Phillies for first place in the NL East, given their recent slide. In Futures League action, the Vermont Lake Monsters have less than a handful of regular season games left, including a tilt tonight against the Worcester Bravehearts at Centennial Field, and the Monsters have already secured a playoff berth. And in the WNBA, the Washington Mystics continue to rebuild, while the Seattle Storm strengthen their squad for a playoff push. The Mystics sent guard Brittany Sykes to the Storm for forward Alicia Clark, and they'll also receive Seattle's first-round pick in next year's draft. Sykes is having one of her best seasons of her 9-year career, averaging 15 points and 4 assists per game. She adds additional scoring punch for the Storm and bolsters a defense that's already one of the best in the league. And that's our weekly look at news from the world of sports. Thanks for listening to The Frequency today. We had additional reporting from Bob Kinzel, Abigail Giles, Howard Weiss-Tisman, and Liam Elder Connors. Today's episode was edited by Stephanie Colombini, and our music is by Blue Dot Sessions. I'm Mitch Wertlieb, and I'll talk to you Monday.
These days, there's so much news, it can be hard to keep up with what it all means for you, your family, and your community. The Consider This podcast from NPR features our award-winning journalism. 6 days a week, we bring you a deep dive on a news story and provide the context and analysis that helps you make sense of the news. We get behind the headlines. We get to the truth. Listen to the Consider This podcast from NPR.